All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Blackburn News, where everything is connected and the viewers are all smarter than the average bear. What's going on? Victory Gin is on Twitter. Deline, you actually got a notification for the show again. Maybe my complaining is working out. You look forward to the intro, Chris? Nice. It's got that Rockford Files vibe, right? Well, what's up, people? Bella and Deline's, people rolling in, some people watching on Twitter, some people watching on Rockfin, I'm sure. Rockfinners, hello. Cool. If you're wherever you're watching, whatever platform you're watching on, please, if you would, like the video, share the video, give me a hey. Creative Experiment says, I bet 25 viewers today. Probably. Very predictable. Very predictable numbers, right? It's all good. We carry on despite the rigging of the numbers, which is what they do so well, is rig the numbers. Anyways, it's all good. It's all good. We're doing it anyways. We're doing it live. It's crazy footage, and this has been going on for like a week. These really intense tornadoes. I saw another clip of two brothers that got like sucked out of their house by a tornado. They're okay. They lived to tell the tale. But that's wild, right? And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is caused by climate change. More powerful storms, more energy in the atmosphere, more energy, more water vapor, right? Can trigger stronger storms, more lightning, more extreme weather. We've seen a serious uptick in extreme weather events in the last like 5 years. Anyways, new dashcam footage shows the moment when a powerful EF3 tornado destroyed a warehouse with 70 workers inside. This is in Nebraska. What's going on? Anyways, let's watch this. Or can we? That is wild. That's wild. That is so crazy. Just wipe this thing. Bella says, Mother Nature, she grown to hate you. Chris says, mad windy here in Seattle for the past few days. I've been hearing that, or seeing that a lot around abouts. Seeing people comment on how windy it is. the ecosystem is definitely disrupted, for sure. And weather has definitely gotten stranger. We got another like rain bomb the other night. So I mean, there was a storm, another large storm that hit Northern California. There was a large storm that hit Northern California and brought some more snow. So we weren't really supposed to get any rain. And as happens now, nowadays, we just get rain out of nowhere, and we get a lot of rain out of nowhere, and that's what happened the other night. It rained really hard all night long. Like, it really came down. And that's just the norm now. And we've gotten a few of those. I don't know, over the last couple of months, we've gotten a few just like out of nowhere, just intense dumps of rain. Again, there's more energy in the system. There's more water vapor in the air. There's more, evaporation. That water is going to come down in places where it's not supposed to come down in amounts that are unprecedented. And that is what is going on all over the planet. Have you guys seen what's going on in Brazil? Hold on. Let's see if we can get... I got too many tabs open, for crying out loud. Well, let's look at this. Like crazy footage coming out of Brazil over the last week from the massive flooding that has gone on there. Brazil mounts frantic rescue effort as flooding kills at least 78. Authorities in southern Brazil scrambled Sunday to rescue people from raging floods and mudslides in what has become the region's largest ever climate catastrophe, with at least 78 dead and 115,000 forced from their homes. Entire cities were underwater, with thousands of people cut off from the world by the floodwater brought by days of torrential rains. In Porto Alegre, the capital of Rio Grande do Sul state, residents stood on rooftops hoping to be rescued as others in canoes or small boats navigated streets that have become rivers after what one climatologist called a disastrous cocktail of climate change and the El Niño effect. More than 3,000 soldiers, firefighters, and other rescuers were trying to reach residents who were in many cases trapped without basic supplies such as running water or electricity. Civil defense officials said that at least 105 people were missing in the latest of a string of catastrophic weather events to hit the South American giant. It looks like a scene out of a war, and after it is over, it will require a post-war approach. Rio Grande do Sul Governor Eduardo Leite said, flanked by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and several government ministers. Lula promised the government would provide all necessary resources for reconstruction. Besides Porto Alegre, another 341 towns and villages have been hit by the flooding. Texas also had major flooding. Yeah, I saw. Didn't Houston get hit? I mean, it's too many to keep up with. China, right? The Midwest is getting some flooding. Houston. Let me see if I can find. But this flooding in Brazil is really intense. And going back to the tornado, we're going to look at something else about tornadoes. There's a big tornado watch going on today in Kansas and Oklahoma. Here's countless animals have died in the catastrophic flooding in Rio Grande do Sul. Hold on one second. There's another one I wanted to show that was Army trucks submerged. It's massive. There's also, somebody. There's 373 missing. So we know 78 dead so far, but there's a lot of people missing in Brazil. Hold on one second. I'm trying to find this other post. Turkey is also getting flooded. I can't find this other post about Brazil. Though there are plenty of them. There's a ton of them. But you guys are seeing some of the damage and flooding. Let's see. Let's see. All right, got some more people watching on Rockfin. That's cool. That's cool. Here's a update on tornadoes in the Midwest today. This is the area that they're looking at for a lot of tornado activity, which is looks like Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma for sure, parts of northern Texas, Arkansas, and Missouri. Into Iowa. Is that right? South Dakota, Iowa as well. All right. Have you all heard recently Chris Hedges was let go from the Real News? His show on the Real News was canceled because of his critiques of the Democratic Party and Joe Biden. This just seems to keep happening to Chris Hedges. And he's been around for a long time. He's been a leading voice that's critical of American empire and the power structure. He was originally, I think, let go from the New York Times, right? He was a war correspondent covering the Iraq War. And he was let go then. And he's actually been let go, I think, from a few places. Didn't he have a show on RT at one time? I think he did. Anyways, he says, I was just informed by Max Alvarez, the editor-in-chief at The Real News, that they will no longer run my show. The reason for the cancellation, he said, is that my critiques of Biden, especially for the genocide in Gaza, jeopardizes his nonprofit status. My last show with Dennis Kucinich, who is running as an independent for Congress in Ohio, was removed from the site. I will resurrect the show on an independent platform, although it may take me a few weeks to get this set up. So support Chris Hedges, of course, who does great work and has been doing great work for 30 years, more than 30 years. Al Jazeera is being censored. Hold on, let's watch this post from do we have it? Let's watch a post on Chris Hedges from the Revolutionary Blackout Network.
Chris Hedges' show was canceled on the Real News Network because of his extremely critical coverage of Israel and his refusal to support genocide Joe Biden. Chris Hedges explains in a social media post that Max Alvarez let him go because Chris Hedges' show threatened their status as a nonprofit because the coverage that Chris Hedges was doing was upsetting Real News Network's donors. The word real is doing a lot of work in the name Real News Network. If your existence as a journalist and news outlet relies on big donors and that impacts your coverage, you're not a journalist, you're a paid propagandist for the capitalist class. But Max Alvarez and Real News Network, they want to be paid propagandists for the capitalist class. So that's why they let go Chris Hedges, a award-winning journalist. Like, how do you cancel Chris Hedges of all people and think that is going to go well for you? We've seen a rise of quote-unquote progressive news outlets following George W. Bush Jr.'s administration, and then a boom of that same industry when Bernie Sanders ran 2 times in 2016 and 2020. These same progressive media outlets was rendered useless when they became infected with Trump derangement syndrome. Because of this, the main objective of progressive news outlets was to defeat Trump and to appease the anti-Trump viewer base instead of telling the truth. The good news is that we are living through the golden era of independent journalism, so Chris Hedges don't need them. The era of journalists being partisan bootlicking cheerleaders is over. Either you tell the truth and nothing but the truth, or you lose all credibility. And the Real News Network, they just lost all their credibility.
From holding Biden accountable despite claiming to care about a free press, Biden is finally getting what he wants. There will be no journalists left to show his war crimes to the world. Blinken. Israel banned Al Jazeera hours before beginning its assault on Rafah. And weren't they, I believe a crew of Al Jazeera reporters was arrested at one point. And they had all their files and footage confiscated. Well, that's a new tactic too. They learned their lesson in Vietnam, right? Don't show people what's happening because they might be upset about it. And the new the new tactic is to just keep people from seeing. It's difficult with social media and people being able to take footage, but they make it as difficult as possible for people to see what's actually going on in a war zone these days, so that they can shape the picture themselves, right? So that they can run their own propaganda about what's going on. I mean, Julian Assange is in jail for revealing, right, some of the war crimes and atrocities that were going on in the Iraq War. One of the reasons, yes, obviously, we're going to talk about that. That's also why they're trying to ban TikTok. I mean, and if they're banning TikTok for those reasons, here we go. If they're banning TikTok for those reasons, here's a post on TikTok. What's to say that they won't ban other platforms or try to shut down other platforms? Their other platforms are heavily censored. We know this. Heavily censored, right? I'd say the worst are YouTube, Facebook, and probably Instagram. But TikTok is pretty heavily censored now too. I've experienced some not necessarily censorship, but shadow banning. Although I've seen other people discuss like what platforms are, better, less censorious, less or more. Some people will argue that Instagram is better than TikTok. Some people think TikTok is better. I don't know, but they're really trying to shut down TikTok because the kids are on TikTok. They're sharing information. They're becoming woke and whatnot. They're getting woke to the facts on TikTok, and they don't want that. And so they're going to try and shut it down. Anyways, incredible mask-off moment. Romney and Blinken say that the ban of TikTok was directly because the emotion, the impact of images has a very challenging effect on the narrative. What was I just saying?
Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you've said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It said it's all the other way around. Typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I was saying, when you can lock up or block the images of what is going on in these war zones or going on with people protesting particular issues, you can steer the narrative in a way that you want more effectively. And yes, they are freaking liars, these people. Judy Truitt says these guys are both prisoners of their own beliefs. Yeah. And it's probably going to get worse, right? They're going to keep trying to do that unless we push back on it. That's why I complain. And I know sometimes people get so upset that I'm complaining about the censorship and the shadow banning. I complain because I'm trying to talk about it, draw it to people's attention that it needs to, something that needs to be pushed up back against, right? Hold on, guys. Hold on. Yeah, these people are just ghouls. Ghouls, I say. All right. Fanatical fascists, mendacious morons. Yeah, Deeps. Speaking of pushback, let's see. I want to bring your attention to this because it is good to put, it is good to talk about these things that are going on. It is good to push back against what's happening. You are the focus group, right? This is as much as they try to steer the narrative and try to keep things from being talked about on the internet or on social media, it's important to talk about these things because in a way, you're giving feedback, right? You are we're all a huge focus group. And if there is enough pushback on things, they do tend to walk things back, right? They do tend to understand like, oh, okay, we can't go any farther with this, right? There's all kinds of ways to push back, right? You can go protest, you can go, shut things down, you can get in the street, you can do, you can talk about things on your social media platforms, you can do shows, commentary, videos, songs, whatever it might be. All of these things matter, right? Because they form a general consensus, and in some ways can be, those kinds of things can be more powerful than, say, even voting, right? Like voting is, they only give you the worst possible choices, and you think you're going to make yourself heard by going to vote for this particular jerk or that particular jerk. Or maybe you're not voting for a jerk. Maybe you're voting for a really stand-up person that they won't allow onto the ballots or won't allow to be seen or heard. Dennis Kucinich, all kinds of other people's, right? But making your voice heard in any way that you possibly can is kind of adding to this overall, this overall consensus. So from holding Biden accountable, pressuring Biden has resulted in a military shipment to the Israeli regime being put on hold for the first time. Just like we always said he could do, right? They could withhold shipments if they were really worried about what Israel was doing. We must keep up the pressure until they're all stopped for good. Again, this might just be for show. This could just be like, hey, they could be publicly saying this or doing this. And obviously it'll end up going through anyways, or they'll end up doing it without it, when nobody's looking later on. But as we saw with COVID and things around COVID, when the general pushback against it got so large, they realized like, all right, we can't really go forward. People are just going to quit their jobs, right? Rather than be forced to take, an experimental thing, right? And people will not comply, right? If you force them to do all these things, there was a lot of in the beginning willingness to go along with the story, and as time went on, people were like, yeah, no, I don't think so. And so a lot of people pushed back, and enough people pushed back that they actually ended up having to walk a lot of that stuff back, and they're still walking it back, and they're still hiding the truth about a lot of what went on. Anyways, it's important to push back. The Biden administration last week put a hold on a shipment of U.S.-made ammunition to Israel. 2 Israeli officials told Axios why it matters. It is the first time since October 7th attack that U.S. has stopped a weapon shipment intended for the Israeli military. The incident raised serious concerns inside the Israeli government and sent officials scrambling to understand why the shipment was held, Israeli officials said. Interesting. Are we going to see, some kind of larger or more significant pullback from their position around Israel? I don't think so. We have politicians just jumping over each other, leapfrogging each other to try to lick the Israeli boot. Who can lick it the fastest? They're just like, oh, let me get out on this podium and stand for Israel. I'm gonna stand harder. Trump is one of those Israeli bootlickers, in case you're wondering. In case you thought he was on the other side, Biden and Trump, they're both Israeli bootlickers. Or, they're just worried about what's in the blackmail file. This is interesting. I saw a graph the other day that for the first time in a long time, the wealthy are paying less taxes than the middle class. That's how awesome deregulation is. That's how awesome an abdication of citizen oversight on the government is, right? When you're like, F these people. They don't care about us. Let's just forget about it. They're just going to do what they're going to do. We want smaller government anyways. And what that attitude has led to is things getting worse and worse and worse for the average person, and a lot better for the wealthy. Am I right? Americans, you've been lied to. Bidenomics means the middle class will soon be paying more in taxes. A single filer, no kids, making $75,000 a year, they're going to see an increase of $1,707. A single filer with 2 kids making $52,000 a year under Biden's tax plan, this taxpayer would see a $1,474 tax increase, $1,474. A married filer, so you've got a couple, 3 kids making $200,000 a year. This couple is going to see an increase of $7,449, $7,500. The middle class bearing the financial brunt of Bidenomics and the numbers are not as hopeful as I thought they would. The new data showing actually that the president's plan to let Trump-era tax cuts expire would raise taxes on most Americans. Let's see if I can find. I don't know if I can find. See if I can find this. Trump tax cuts expire in 2025. Trump sunset tax cuts to obtain 2024 voter support. Biden will not raise taxes on American. No, that's not right. No. People have already seen the tax code change against them, right? I've been hearing this whole last year that people are saying, like, you know, they owe money for the very first time in years, or they owe more than they've ever owed before. Hold on. See if I can find this. Where is the graph? Oh, I can't find it. Anyways, it's probably on my timeline, I'm sure. Sure. Maybe if I go down deep enough, I'll find it. All right, guys. Well, now's the time when I gotta say, if you enjoy the show, if you enjoy the content coming to you for free every day, Monday through Friday, and you want to support the show, I could surely use your support. There are lots of ways. All the links are in the description box. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, etc. Coffees. Lots of ways to support the show if you enjoy what you're seeing. And many of you already support the show. I appreciate everyone that supports the show. You know who you are. All right, I am not going to find this post. And we got about 15 minutes left in the show. Mark Zuckerberg. This is going around. This is Mark Zuckerberg's yacht. This thing is like the size of a medium-sized office building. It's wild. Hold on, you got a link on Rockfin? Oh, you're talking about Hiroshima bombs per second. Oh. Mark Zuckerberg, known for his climate change activism. Do you guys know Mark Zuckerberg as a climate change activist? Do you guys know him for his climate change activism? I don't know. Do you? Do you guys? Zuck's 287-foot mega yacht is powered by 4 MTU diesel engines and can reach a top speed of 24 knots. That is insane. That freaking thing is insane. I'm sure if you just slap a green energy sticker on the side of it, then everything's fine. Or all the engines have a green, a going green sticker on the side, so that makes it fine. That's fine. That'll be fine. How y'all doing? How y'all doing in the chats? Obsolete says, I wish they would just release the blackmail files already, or someone hack in and leak them. That would be an interesting turn of events for sure. Let's see. Saw something. Here's some interesting. For those that are following, like the fake green thing, Shell sold millions of carbon credits tied to CO2 removal that never took place to Canada's largest oil sands companies, raising doubts about a technology seen as crucial to mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah. We know that carbon credits are rife with corruption, that they're not necessarily real. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read this article. Freaking Financial Times. I don't have money for you, Financial Times. Sorry. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it somewhere else. Hold, please. Yeah, and that's why I'm not really a fan of the whole, like, we need a carbon tax so we can solve climate change. We do? Here we go. Greenpeace is going to give us the article. Thank you, Greenpeace. Thanks. A bunch. Shell's, no, I don't care. Just go away. Shell's flagship carbon capture project has made over $200 million, or Canadian dollars, that is. $200 million selling emission credits for reductions that never happened, according to a new investigative report selling hot air from Greenpeace Canada. The findings come as Canadian oil sands companies advertise carbon capture and storage as a solution to oil sands pollution, while lobbying against regulations that could cap emissions from the sector. Freedom of Information documents obtained by Greenpeace show that Shell lobbied for and received a 2-for-1 deal during the 2008 negotiations with the government of Alberta as a way to further subsidize the project. Under this deal, Shell was able to sell credits for 2 tons of CO2 for every 1 ton that it actually captured and keep all the profits. It's a money laundering scheme, y'all. I'm telling you. It is a it's all a money laundering scheme. Zuckerberg barred you from the Facebook feed, Gregory? Yeah. They're famous for that. All of this is just a bunch of 3-card Monty, right? And again, for the people that yell like, we need a carbon tax. Okay, a carbon tax is going to sounds like a good idea, but how is it going to be implemented? And who is it going to hurt? It's going to hurt people that can't afford to pay the carbon tax first. And I feel like it's just financializing. When you're going to financialize the solution to climate change, I feel like you're going down the wrong road there. Because Isn't the financialization of everything the reason why we're in this problem? It's like figuring out an economic way to fix, the economy is the reason for climate change. The economy is what's destroying the planet. You're not going to find a solution in the economy. The solution is getting rid of as much of the economy as possible as you can, right? Or having, just having economy just geared towards keeping people alive, right? Or giving people goods and services and people being able to exchange for goods and services on a local level, right? But like the larger economy, the economy at large, the economy of, commercialization, construction, mining, construction, distribution, consuming, that entire economy is what is destroying the planet. So you're not going to find a solution there. It's just not going to happen. So try again. To the people that are like, carbon tax, try again. Carbon credits, try again. Yeah. Note to the editor, data drawn from Alberta's carbon credit registry and Shell reports to the government of Alberta show that in the 2015 to 2022 period, the profits from these 5.7 million tons of phantom labeled additional in the registry credits amounted to $203 million Canadian. These phantom credits do not correspond to any captured or avoided carbon. None. Right. And lastly, I think lastly, or maybe second to lastly, Venezuela is now ice free. The first American country to lose all its glaciers. Please tell me again how the planet is not warming. Please explain to me how this, this is totally natural. This is great. Obsolete, you're spinning. Is that an actual comment, or is that your comment spinning? What is that? That's interesting. What's going on there? Did you say something you weren't supposed to say there? Anyways, the 2HA Humboldt Glacier is now static and was downgraded from glacier to ice field. This is shown here. Here, 2024, 2008. So here's what it looked like in 2008. Here's what it looks like in 2024. It's kind of, I think it's hard to gauge the difference there. Oh, what was the rest of this post? Next countries on the list, Indonesia. Indonesia has glaciers? Interesting. Mexico and Slovenia. Oh, here's another one. This is the last post for the day. No, what? Get out of here. Sorry, that wasn't intentional. That we ended up on an ad here. Air travel emissions double that previously reported. It's a strangely worded tweet here. But we'll look at this. Just when you thought air travel was bad, it's actually worse than bad. Climate emissions from air travel 50% higher than reported. 50% higher than reported. A new study that looked at nearly 40 million flights in 2019 was able to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions from air travel for nearly every country on the planet at 911. Interesting number. At 911 million tons, the total emissions from aviation are 50% higher than the 604 million tons reported to the United Nations for that year. That's very interesting. New data show that countries such as China, for example, which did not report its 2019 aviation-related emissions, was second only to the United States when it came to total aviation-related emissions. They did not report their emissions for 2019. Now we have a much clearer picture of aviation emissions per country, including previously unreported emissions, which tells you something about how we can go about reducing them. What? Said Helene Murray, a research professor at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology's Industrial Ecology Program. Anyways, Murray was one of Klenner's supervisors and co-author of the paper. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no more snows on Kilimanjaro. Yeah, Kilimanjaro, the snow on Kilimanjaro is going away. Or the glacier on Kilimanjaro. Was that your post, Obsolete Optics, or did your post get hung up? I'm wondering. You guys are funny. Hilarious. Good stuff. All right. Give me 1 second. Got a very generous tip from Rich Diana. Thank you. Rich says the earth is crying for our help. Thank you, Rich. Let me check in. Check in to see what condition my condition is in. Let's see. Making sure I didn't get any other contributions. All right. Thanks, guys. No, you were buffering. Okay. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience, and thank you for the conversation. Until next time, peace.